Hey everybody, what's happening? Happy Friday.
Hey.
How's everybody doing? If you guys could hear us tonight, I would love for you to put it in the chat. Say we hear you loud and clear, because we want to make sure that we get this audio right tonight, y'all. Because we come to serve tonight. So in the chat, if you are watching us on YouTube or Facebook, please put "Hey y'all, what's happening" in the chat to let us know that you could hear us. We would love to get your feedback on that. So I think we got one comment that just came in. Doing great. Someone says doing great. Thank you, Mama. That's my mama, y'all.
Come on.
So as always, it's Friday night and you could be anywhere doing anything, but you are here with us and we appreciate y'all. I am Chantel, just for those of you who do not know me, and this is my guy.
I'm John.
And we are happy to come to you guys tonight with another conversations from what we call the 4 C's, y'all. So without further ado, you want to just jump on in?
Let's jump on in.
If you guys are doing good, say I'm doing good. Doing good. Yay. So here's the deal, y'all. I'm going to recap for those of you who are just tuning in with us for the first time and you don't know what we're doing. We are doing a relationship talk series. We talk about relationships and we talk about some specific things for us that we've actually learned in relationships of what not to do, what not to do. And obviously, when you learn what not to do, the goal is to learn what to do. So we're going to share some more of what to do's tonight with y'all. So are y'all ready? Put ready in the chat. Ready, ready, ready. Okay, you ready, John?
Ready.
So this next C, so we've covered, you want to break them down?
Yes.
With the first one.
We started with commitment.
Commitment, and the second one was caring.
And
the third was what?
Compromise.
Compromise. That was last week, y'all. And so this week, you want to give it to them?
The word is communication.
Communication. Do you guys know anything about that out there? If you know anything about communication, just put communication in the chat. Well, okay, so I will say that communication has probably been, I think, a mutual thing between the two of us that has been one of the biggest challenges in our marriage. Would you say?
Yes.
Yes, it's communication. So I think many of you all may be able to relate to that, because in relationships, of course, you have to communicate, right? In every relationship, there's a communication that has to happen in any relationship. Yes. So I want to just talk about a little bit, John, and have you talk to them about like the root word, like where it comes from, what it means, all that stuff.
So communication is like an old word with roots all the way back to Latin. It was a long time ago. And it basically means to make something in common. Communicatio or communicationa, making something in common. And that's sort of like when you think about communicating, you're bringing things together so that you have them in common. And sort of the modern definition that we have is the process of communicating or exchanging ideas by speech, by signs, in a written manner, a visual manner. So it's an exchange of ideas, but I think it all boils down to bringing something in common. When we have things in common, we're bringing them together. So communication is a concept of bringing things together.
Interesting. So why is it that people have so many problems with it? If that's the root, like bringing things together, like why do you think people have so many problems with communicating?
I would say from personal experience that it has to do, at least in part, with wanting things my way. People want things their way. So when you think about bringing things in common, it means that both people are practicing these other things we talked about.
Yeah.
Commitment, caring, and compromise. You're bringing your part, I'm bringing my part, and then somehow we get them to overlap or interconnect. But if we are trying to communicate one direction only, and we're not willing to have the reverse communication, then we're not actually bringing anything together in common. So that's one thing I would say from a personal experience.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that, baby. Y'all, so listen, all of these 4 C's that we've talked about, what's amazing is that they all have the essence of coming with, going with.
Yeah.
There's a withness. It's like with, and it's interesting that this particular C, communication, is on the same lines. I didn't know that before we discovered and went on this journey. All the root words that you have been giving us, I did not know that. And so, y'all, if you haven't watched the other episodes, we got 3 more episodes like this. But if you go back and watch them, they have like a through line. And I think these words that we are all so familiar with compromise, commit, care, communicate, all of these, I really believe God arranged them in a way for us to come with, for us to be kind of like working together. Like, I'm bringing my stuff in, you're bringing your stuff in. But it's with the mindset of we're going in this with a togetherness, not in the sense of I'm coming in for my way. Correct. Like you were sharing. I can totally relate to that, because I think sometimes in our marriage and communication, I'm like coming in there with what I want to say and what I have to say. Let's talk a little bit, because there are like some forms of commitment. Like, I know that there's a lot, like there's 10, there's some people say there's 10, some people say there's 7, some people say, there's 4. But I want to talk to you because I really feel like for us, when I originally talked to you about this, I found 5. Do you remember what they were?
Visual, verbal, written. I'm trying to remember them.
They were verbal communication.
Verbal and nonverbal. That's it. Yeah. Nonverbal, written, listening, and then visual. That's what it was.
So y'all, these areas, thank you, babe. These 5 areas here, we're gonna just break them down a little bit and just how they've affected us in our marriage. So, verbal communication, let's talk about that a little bit. What would you say verbal communication?
Verbal communication is the words that we use. Okay.
The words that we use.
The words that we use, and the way we use them. The words we use, the way we use them, the way we phrase them, the way we intone them, and things like that.
And I would say the number 2, which is nonverbal, y'all, which I personally feel like nonverbal is all within the body. It's you're saying some stuff. It is all within the body. So, just to I'm going to mock this out for you guys a little bit. So, you come to me and you say something that that I'm not going to like. You want to try it? Role play a little bit. What would I not like that you would come and say?
I decided that I'm going to go hang out with my friends tonight, even though we had scheduled to have a dinner date. You wouldn't like that very much, would you?
Are you serious?
No.
Okay. So y'all, just a little tidbit. Okay, just a little tidbit for that. I want to
tell the people I wouldn't actually do.
He actually wouldn't do that, by the way. But that was a good one, because if you did, I don't know if you guys noticed before I said, "Are you kidding me?" My energy, and just looking at him and checking him for a minute, like that's nonverbal communication. When it's just all in the body, you got to look. You roll the eyes, all kind of stuff, nonverbal. And sometimes just our whole body gets stiffed up. Like sometimes I know that I can get stiff. Like it's like that, that hard mode. You're looking at someone like this, and it's the body is hard. The body is puffed up. That's all nonverbal, y'all. I don't know if y'all can relate, but if you can relate, put something in the chat and say, "I got you, girl. I got you," because there's body language all day long and nonverbal. You want to hit that next one? That next one is written communication.
So that's instead of speaking it out your mouth, you're writing it down, or you're emailing it, or you're texting it. And one thing about written communication, when I think of it, is when somebody writes a text message in all caps, that everybody knows what that means. That's shouting without shouting.
That's shouting without shouting.
Shouting without shouting. So we have to watch the way we write our words.
The way we write our words. Good one, babe. Oh my goodness. I literally, that written communication, I do try to step back for a minute before I actually write it.
Yeah.
Like I won't, if someone texts me something crazy, there's been times I've just replied on the spot, but most of the time I literally try to process first, or they just won't hear from me for a minute because I'm really trying to work through what I want to say back. But I think if we don't take the time and we get a text like that where it's in all caps, we're going to actually respond with the communication of you actually replying back from the energy of what you received. That is natural and normal. But if we take some time, we could actually probably respond differently from what we receive. And it's all like even exclamation marks. Sometimes it's like excitement, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's like, I want you to really hear what I'm trying to say in this point. Boom, that exclamation mark goes there. So that written communication, y'all, that's one that's powerful. And I think that many people can relate with that one. Many people. The next one, listening. Did y'all know that listening was communication? Did y'all know that? That's that fourth one. So we've covered verbal 1, nonverbal 2, written communication 3, and listening number 4. Babe, what do you have to say on that one?
Listening is actually the receptive part of communication. So we were talking about having things in common. Well, it's impossible to have things in common if you're not receiving information. It's not just giving information, but it's receiving it. It's processing it. And active listening implies that you're actually engaged with somebody else, that you're actually participating in the conversation. It's not just like, the mailman comes and drops off of the mail, right?
Yeah.
So he's dropping off a piece of communication, but you're not listening. You're not paying attention to what he's doing. You're not, it's like whatever. He just drops it off. It's one-sided on actually both sides. He's not looking at you. He doesn't care. He just drops off the information. You pick it up, right? So you can talk with somebody and be like the mailman. You're dropping off information, but listening, active listening would be the element of communication where you're receiving the message and you are processing it in order to reflect back and compare it with what you're bringing to the table, and then trying to reach an accord. I hadn't when I saw the list, I'm like, that's an interesting item to put on the communication definition list, but it works. It makes sense to me because otherwise, my typical response would be the things that come out from me, not the things that come to me.
Yeah. I was very impressed when I discovered that as well. Like, but it makes sense. It's the truth. It's like the form of communication that a lot of times we ignore because we really want to express ourselves. I personally, one of the things that's really cool for me is that journey that I went on for the coaching program, because that I was taught like it's so important to listen, almost to where I could hear a pin drop. And so I've had to actually practice this part of communication because it wasn't my strength and I'm still working on it, y'all. But I just feel like that's the part that I do believe if we as a people would go into a situation of communication with, I'm coming here to really listen to this person. I'm coming to really listen to this person because if I listen, I'm going to really hear what they're trying to communicate and I won't interpret it in the wrong way. See, when our feelings get in the way, we talked about this on one of our other episodes, when the feelings get in the way for me, I actually cannot hear like really, really well what somebody's trying to tell me. But if I'm present to go, let me tune in, let me lean in and to hear what this person is trying to say. And that goes with what we talked about, the third C of caring, or the second C of caring, because when you care about someone, you want to validate them. You want to hear what they got to say. And that's the other part of it is when you listen, you're able to validate back and say, hey, what I hear you saying is this, rather than what I feel you're saying. What I feel you're saying is this, but what I hear you saying is this. Y'all, if this is making sense to y'all, please put something in the chat. Like I hear you, girl. Put that in the chat. Okay, let's go to our last one. It's 5. The 5th one is visual communication. I actually love this one in the sense of some, because I'm a person that's looking when I go on Instagram or social media, I'm looking for those positive things that people are dropping and saying, or those videos people are making.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of visual communication happens when someone is putting out a video that says, make it a good day because you can. Or if someone is putting out, don't forget to tell yourself, I love you today.
Hmm.
All of those are communications to actually inspire and encourage people. What are some other ways you think visual communication comes into play?
Symbols, emojis, yeah, videos, cards,
Mm,
things like that that express a message with a picture or a symbol or
true.
a
Good stuff.
calligraphy or something like that. So it's not, you can see this the subtext of it, and
Mm,
it reaches a different. I suppose it reaches a different part of your heart or your soul or your mind to communicate a message. So like telling somebody I love you is one
one
thing.
thing.
When you have a nice card or a gift that goes along with it, you're presenting an object that they can see, and the object can speak the message
Mm.
as well, or maybe even more powerful.
Ooh, good stuff. Good stuff. Um, I like that. I love that. The whole aspect of sending a card to someone or writing a card. I know I love when I get
Mm-hmm.
cards. Um, when someone's on their own, just go, I'm gonna send her a card in the mail. Oh, you guys, if you have ever done that, and some of you have done that that's on here, I that that just warms my heart and just fires up my
Mm.
soul, y'all. It really, really does.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of ways to visually communicate to someone. I don't know if you mentioned, but even writing a letter, or
Mm-hmm.
I was telling a friend of mine, because he was talking to me about his relationship with this girl, and I said, hey, why don't you just tell her how you feel on post-it notes and put it on her car, put it in
Look at
her,
that.
when you go over to her house, leave it somewhere in her bathroom where she can find it when you're gone. And he actually did that. And he sent me a message like, Chantel, it really, really works. So that visual communication for her, when she could actually see it, actually did
Mm.
something in their relationship.
Yeah.
So that visual aspect is powerful, y'all. It's powerful. Um, Thank you for all of this good stuff, babe. I want to just move on a little
Mm.
bit because I really want to get into the thick of what are some communication killers. Let's talk about those. What
Okay.
are some?
Um, sarcasm,
Mm,
sarcasm, not listening,
mm,
um, being stuck in your own head, being proud of your
mm.
so proud that you're not willing to bend or anything like that, and like I said, not listening basically demonstrates that it's a one-sided
Mm,
conversation. It's not
mm.
like you're not trying to interact with people. So those would be things that come to mind.
Thank you for those. I appreciate
Mhm.
those. What kind of triggers in me is minimizing.
Mm.
Minimizing is a real killer. Minimizing people's conversations, like making it small, like what they have to say. You're not really interested in because you want to
Yeah.
share what you got to say. Minimizing is really crucial. It's a real killer. I also think defensiveness, like when if you come to me to say something and I'm automatically cocked up,
Yeah.
that's like really a huge communication killer. And with these communication killers, there's some other ones like shutting down or making blanket statements like,
Hmm.
"Oh, you should." Those are
Mm.
all communication killers for me, and they have not worked well for us, y'all. These are the things like those communication killers. Yeah, we are very aware of them. They have played a role in our
Hmm.
dynamic in many, many ways. And so I don't know if you can relate, but if you can, put in the chat, I can relate because they are powerful killers. And let me just tell you, we're going to just talk a little bit for ourselves. I want to know for you, and I'll share too, but is there any which CK, because I'm gonna call them
Communication
CK,
killer.
communication killers, your CK. So I always remember these communication killers that we're telling y'all. But which CK do you feel you have kind of applied in our relationship? Like, were you not the one where you like, I see this one all the time. This happens
Something that
more.
I do.
Yes. So which communication killer would you say you have had a challenge with?
Defensiveness.
This one.
Defensiveness.
Yeah, because we'll list all of y'all. No, I will.
That's a big
Defensiveness. How has it affected your relationship?
It has created more heightened energy, which is a nice way of saying fights. And it's created hurt. It's created hurt between us. It's created division between us that has then taken, we have to spend time then repairing. And I think the reality is that when you have those moments, I mean, I guess it's taken me a while to accept that conflict, and butting heads sometimes in a marriage relationship or any relationship is inevitable because we're imperfect. So it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But what it does, especially when it's repeated over and over again, I think it leaves scars. It leaves wounds and scars. And so that, just like a soldier, he's fresh. He comes out of boot camp, right? He's ready. Yeah. He's ready to go fight. Well, once he's been on the battlefield for a while, he's still strong. Now he's got the real life experience, but he's could be wounded, and he could be scarred in such a way that's like he doesn't have the juice to fight. Yeah. He can't fight the same intense level. When it might be needed. And I think that's what happens, that like we end up in a situation where the wounds and the scars actually prevent us from having the strength to go out and fight the good fight outside the four walls of the home. Right? Because that doesn't ever change. Yeah. That doesn't ever change. The attacks, as soon as you walk out the door, there's going to be something. But if you're inside your home and there is tension, unresolved stuff, poor communication, defensiveness, then leading to fights, well, it scars the other person, it scars yourself, and going out into the world, you're going to be drained even more. Yeah.
Wow. As you were sharing, I was just thinking that when and I appreciate you sharing that, hey, it wounds people. Like your communication killer actually wounds someone. And y'all, when you're thinking about somebody who's wounded, you mentioned a soldier, he's going to need his buddies or her buddies to actually help them and kind of carry them in that moment, because maybe he can't walk because he's been fighting this battle. But if you think about it, like spiritually, when people are wounded, they have a reaction to that. It's not a response. It's a reaction at that point of either protection or a reaction of, which I'm going to go into mine, which is shutdown. Shutdown or shutdown statements. And so in relationships, that's like that communication killer you do not want to happen, because if someone is shut down, then there's no more communication happening, right? There's just none happening. And so I think that for me, that's what has happened for me, where if I am feeling a certain kind of way, or if you communicated something to me that was not helpful for me, I would shut down. And that allows me, what I think in the moment is temporary control of the situation, but I really don't have control of the situation, because both of us are actually going through something, and we're both feeling something because I'm not talking, nobody's talking, or either a shutdown statement, like, well, if you do that again, this is what I'm going to do. Shutdown statements. Those are such killers in the relationship. And it actually, I know for me, I feel how it's affected you is that it's made you very uncomfortable in the space with me. And sometimes you don't even know what, to say to me, because it's so uncomfortable. And I definitely know that I've seen it. I've seen when you're
Hmm.
uncomfortable. And I think in relationships, sometimes you're gonna have challenges, but
Yeah.
if it's a situation where you're not bending and you're creating a comfortable space in the room for the people you're in interaction with, it affects everybody. And so I've even felt like it's not just affected you when I shut down, it's actually affected the rest of the family. Because I'm not talking to anybody.
Mhm.
Nobody's I'm not connecting at that point. So that's something I want to share with you guys is that, with these killers, they actually just break down the fibers of the relationship. But more than anything, they actually break down the fibers inside you, your
Yeah.
spirit.
Yeah.
It's breaking down your mind, it's breaking down your heart, it's breaking down your spirit. And you're actually not in rhythm in the way God wants you to be, the way he made you. And of course, he made us with emotions and feelings, but he always gives us a way to deal with those. And so I think that these communication killers are, things that I know that we've experienced that did not work for us. They did not work for us. Would you agree?
Yeah. They have done a lot of damage. Yeah.
They
Absolutely.
really, really, really have, y'all. So, I know that we're talking about the subject matter. And for some of you, it might be a little challenging because you may have been set in your ways, quote unquote. People say
Hmm.
that term, I'm set in my ways, of this is just who I am. I'm
Yeah.
just like this. And I think, to some degree, who you are is a great thing to claim who you are. But if you're claiming it because it's another level of defense, like for someone to go like just accept that that's the way you are, is actually not fair to other people if you're
Mhm.
not willing to bend and learn how to
Right.
communicate for both of y'all. Because remember, communication is really to try to
Bring things in
bring
common.
together, bring things to common. So if your response is, that's just me and the way that I am, that's not a bringing together comment. That's actually a shutdown statement, kind of like something that I've said in the past. Shutdown statements, they actually don't benefit the relationship, and they're actually not benefiting you. So if you're having any of you out there, if you're having any challenges in your relationships, it would be really, really good to just identify if you have any of these CKs in your life. Just identify, because once you start identifying it, you have somewhere to go and you can work on it.
Hmm.
Would you agree?
Hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
So we want to I want to go over here and see if I have any comments over here. Let's see what you guys are seeing. Um Somebody said, I'm gonna read a few of these comments. Hey y'all, hey. Somebody put in here the eyes, y'all, the eyes.
Mm.
Yeah. I
A look.
noticed that look up. Uh-oh. Yes. Ooh, child. I got you, girl. Everyone knew about the all caps text except your boy William. Oh, poor William didn't catch that. Wow. Yeah, the some people don't know actually. He might not be the only one actually. Yeah, because sometimes I'm already thinking of what I'm going to say before you finish your sentence. That's a real deep one right there. Thanks for sharing that, especially if I don't want to hear
Hmm.
it. Yeah, so good. I hear you, girl. I hear you. Thank you. Thank you all for these comments. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you have had any of the CKs in your life that we just talked about, please put yes in the chat. Just go and put yourself out there. Turn yourself in, y'all. Turn yourself in. Just put yes in the comments. Yes, I've had a CK before. Go and put it in there. So let's thank you for the comments, but we're gonna keep it moving. So I want to talk about this.
Hmm.
This next question is really something that I do think I put it on here because I really wanted to bring this into light and have this taken into consideration. But
Hmm.
do you believe that there are cultural differences that affect the ability for some people to communicate effectively, and why?
Yes. Absolutely. Each culture has its own method of communication or methods of communication.
Mm,
Some are more wordy than others. Some are more visual than others. Some use more body language than others. Something that might offend somebody in one culture might be perfectly standard in
mm,
another culture. So these are things that we have. we live in a multicultural society, which is
Yes.
kind of unusual in the world. Most countries that you go to is like a singular culture. Okay, so they're all, by and large, and I'm generalizing, but by and large, you go to a country, they all generally are going to speak one language. They're all generally going to have like sort of the same traditions.
Yes.
This is very generalization, but the U.S. is very different from that. We have people from all different backgrounds, all different histories, all different cultures, gazillion languages, all this stuff, living side by side. And then we cross each other's paths in the public square, in school, in jobs, in churches, just in neighborhoods. I mean, you can see the whole, United Colors of Benetton pretty much, in any large city, you're going to see that, right? You see all different kinds of people, but they're all coming with a cultural set. And there has been so much emphasis, I would say, over the last 25 to 50 years of elevating an understanding of culture, or having a pride in one's culture. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, to understand your history, to be proud of the things that people have gone before you, what they've overcome, and to feel a sense of like, this is who I am, this is who I come from, and I feel good about it. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I think has happened culturally is that the issue of who my identity is within my culture has swung so far that it butts up against other people's culture, such that we're not communicating. Now, instead of saying, I have my culture, you have your culture, let's share the ideas, kind of bring them together and meld those traditions together and make something a little bit more flavorful. Now, this is just my personal view, the way I'm seeing things. Like, well, people have retreated largely into their corners. This group, that group, the other group, and there's a lot of conflict because we're butting up against one another, and it takes so much pride that it becomes unhealthy. We don't want to integrate. We don't want to connect with other people. So, when it gets down to the individual level, each of us brings our culture into an interpersonal relationship. Again, if you're so tightly connected with your culture, which informs the way you see the world, it's going to make it very difficult for you to embrace somebody else when they are doing things differently based on their own cultural experience.
Ooh, that stuff is like, babe, we could just have a show just on this subject alone. Would you guys agree? This subject alone deserves its own conversation to dig deeper into. But we're just gonna hit a little bit of it for y'all tonight. But I really love what you just shared, because I think it's so true, and I absolutely agree that has happened, where we're not trying to come with or bring together. There's this is my, I represent me over here, and you represent you over here. And if we can come together, good. But I ain't doing anything extra.
Right. It's got to be on my terms.
Yeah.
Right. It's and that's a paradigm that I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's, when you think back on the struggles that we've had in our culture to bring people together of different backgrounds, different cultures, and so forth, the integration movement. I think that kind of, getting really hardened in your position actually is opposite of what so many people
have fought
for to bring about peace and bring about more unity. Is sort of reversing that, and it's heartbreaking. And it affects the sort of the large culture, and it can affect just how we relate to other people, personal lives, job, church, or school, whatever.
It actually breaks down the relationship.
Yes.
I personally think, I ain't thinking for God, because his thoughts are higher, but like the whole reason, God's got, when you think about it, God's got all these people he created, all this person over here, this culture, this person here, this guy here, this person. We were meant to be on this earth to kind of like build a relationship together. That's what we're here for, that purpose. And so if we're not looking at just the spiritual elements of things, and this especially for Christians, we are the people that kind of almost ambassadors, and people see how that's supposed to be done. So if we're like are on the side of I'm going to stick to my culture and you stick to yours. If we're on that side, we're actually almost going against the blueprint plan that God would have, where He put all these people on the earth together to learn how to work together, right? So I definitely really appreciate, and I think that like I'm saying, this deserves a deeper, longer conversation. But I do want to share from my perspective because I do believe, and I want to talk a little bit about us, like getting specific. You know, it's interesting because John and I both grew up in the country, y'all. We both grew up in the country.
Small town.
But he grew up in the country on a different side of the earth than I did. I grew up in Texas, and you grew up in
New Jersey.
And so we both grew up where it's in a small town. Although I was born in the city, we grew up in this small town. And so that we could identify, I think the first time I went to visit your small town, I'm like, this looks familiar, But what we have in our relationship discovered that the way John grew up with his family line and the way I grew up, they're two different countries. Even though we both grew up country, they are two different. They are completely opposite. And I think in our relationship, we've discovered, and it took us some time to discover this, like, oh, we actually have different, the way I was brought up is a little bit different, and my value system is a little bit different from that. Not that the value systems were off, it's just that John would handle things a certain way and different from how I would handle it. And so we have this kind of like this joke in our family, like he's book smart guy and I'm the streets. Just from the books, I'm from the streets. And so what's cool about that is God has brought us together for him to share his insight of his world from where he came from and me to share mine. But if we resist that, y'all, we would never be able to have a marriage. We would just never be able to have a marriage because if I don't embrace his culture and the way that he's brought up and the things that they do different than what I would do, then I'm not trying to have a togetherness. I'm existing in a relationship. That's what's happening. I'm not having a togetherness. In the same way, if he doesn't embrace my culture, my background, where I come from, then he would never be able to receive it. We would never be able to connect and commune, right? And so I think too, like just really discovering that for ourselves. And then also, and I'm just gonna be honest with this, like John's white, I'm black. There's already a difference right there culturally in race. And so we've had to fight hard to not let our race get in the way of our communication and our relationship that God has given us. Because when we go before God, he's not going to ask me anything about being black. And I'm sure he's not going to ask you anything about being white. He's going to ask you, did you do what I told you? Did you treat humanity in the way humanity should be treated? Did you love and respect? I'm just thinking that's what he's going to ask, but I know it's not going to be anything about his creation because he already knows what he created. He created you this color in this way. He created me this color. So that's not, he don't have to ask me nothing. He already know he's created. And so what I'm saying here is that, John being white and me being African-American, being black, it's like, we come from two different worlds just already with that. And y'all, I don't feel like for me that I need to ignore that or try to push that down. This is truth we're talking here. We're talking truth here is that because of that, we've had some different ways that we operate. And we have really had to come and lean in so that we can see each other clearly, y'all. If you are in a relationship with someone or in a interracial relationship, whether black and white, Latin and white, or even if you got family and relatives that are, different races that have been embraced into your family through marriage or whatsoever, I would say it would do you a service to lean in to get to know that person versus coming into the table with all your glory in a way that is not helpful. Okay, there's nothing wrong with coming in with your glory and what God has given you, but it's when you come in there with my way, I'm gonna do it my way, and whoever else is not on board, I don't know what to tell them. And there's a thing that's out there, I hear it all the time. What doesn't serve you, get rid of it, kind of. And so if I had that mindset in the communication area of, well, you're not serving me right now, we would both be in divorce court, right? Because that's that mentality. There are certain things, y'all, for sure, that is not working. And we're not saying to ignore those things. What we're saying is the mindset is all about you in a relationship, and it is not, you've not taken the time to consider to come to get with some togetherness and get on some common ground. Then that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about real stuff that people, they've been in these situations. It's time for them to depart, but it's got to be healthy for them. It's got to be a healthy situation, not a situation because it just doesn't work out your way. Quitting on your commitment, or quitting to care, or quitting to compromise, or quitting to communicate. If that is the rhythm of how you would operate, or if I would operate like that, then I'm probably going to have challenges in every area of relationship that I go in, whether it's a marriage or dating, whether it's a job, whether it's a friend, whether it's a mother, whether it's a sister, whether it's a cousin. I'm probably going to have problems in every one of those areas because I'm not willing to bend. I am quitting on communicating or caring. Does that make sense? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, yeah, if you're quitting, well, then you end the commonality.
Yes.
And all of what you were saying, it reminded me of a quote from Marcus Rogers. That we actually saw this, it was during the pandemic, but he is a preacher, and what he basically said is that he saw so many people more excited about their culture than the kingdom. Right. And what he meant by that is like culture, he wasn't, putting down being culturally aware or being proud of whatever or standing up for a cause. But what he was saying, particularly to people of faith, is that, you'll go out and you'll do all this stuff and you'll, rah for your cause. But when it comes to the transcendent, when it comes to the bigger things, when it comes to God, which is sort of over all of us, and God is sort of like the referee of life, and God can actually bring different people together, right? God is higher and above, and his values are higher than our own individual personal stuff and our own cultural stuff. Marcus Rogers was saying, I would like to, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but I'd like to see more people, particularly people of faith, going after the kingdom of God, going after the transcendent more so than their cause. Because if you go after the transcendent first, you're going to actually be at a higher place, and those cultural divisions and things, you're going to have tools to resolve them. And if you take two people of different cultural background, but they have a value system higher, well, the cultural systems are now secondary to the higher value of God. So you can still have who you are in your culture. You can still have a healthy appreciation of it, celebrate it, but you're bringing it to the table, and you're basically saying, well, God is higher, and God is going to help us to bring these two cultures together rather than butting heads.
Well said. Well said. I love that. When you said God is the referee, that gave me chills because it is so true. Because as humans, we just talked about communication killers. That's who that's how we roll. It can happen at any given time. But when you have someone that transcended, someone higher than yourself, then you're actually able to get in a rhythm of like, I don't actually have to fight to communicate because I have someone that's actually leading here higher than me.
Higher.
I have the referee. Y'all, that's good. If y'all feeling this, if y'all hearing what we're saying, put referee in the chat, because God is really the referee.
Mm-hmm.
He really is, because he's greater and higher, and he's
Yes.
the most effective communicator. So it would behoove us to really
Yes.
connect with that. This, like I said, all this is deeper. So at some point we got to get deeper with that. But y'all, we're closing in on our time here. We definitely appreciate you guys watching us tonight. But I do want to talk really quickly as we're closing out, John. Like, what would you say in reference to all the stuff that you've shared and what I've shared tonight? How can a person experience growth in their communication skills? What tools would you have to offer? Say, hey, I know you just offered the fact that for Christians, and for people in general, we're just going to put that out there and speak it completely. Like, I believe God principles helps you whether you are a person of faith or not.
Yes.
They will help you, absolutely. And we were not always Christians, right?
No.
So we've had to really look at a different way for ourselves. And he is the way. But I do want to talk to you about that. Like, if you were to offer some practicals of what could help a person grow in their communication skills, what would one be, or two?
Well, I'm going to take a scriptural principle. It's short, but it is applicable to anybody. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Which I'm not all that great at, but that's a biblical principle in the book of James. So, but it really, take the religious part away and just think about that. Be quick to listen. All right.
Yeah.
You got 2 ears to listen. So you're bringing in information and you're processing information, and slow to speak. Give yourself plenty of time to hear and process the other person's messages. And then slow to get angry is on the back end. So while you're processing, don't shoot your mouth off, don't let your anger come out, and, try to keep it cool. If you can practice that basic philosophy, then that will help you. And then, of course, there are relationship psychologists and people like that have strategies that can actually help you take that little biblical philosophy and expand it out, because it can be expanded, when you're listening and you're learning how to wait, you're learning how to rephrase things back to somebody so that you verify that you get mutual understanding, things like that. But I would just go with that. That would be the step one. So listen, quick to listen and slow to speak.
Quick to listen and slow to speak. That's a good one, mate. That's a good one. Y'all, are you guys feeling what we're dropping down? If you are still with us, put I'm still here. Y'all, I really just appreciate y'all once again for always supporting us on Friday nights. It really means a lot. I do agree with what you were sharing with the scripture. I think that's totally right on. Because listening was actually one of the communication skills that we read out earlier. I definitely appreciate that. I also think that some things that will help, and I kind of mention it, is just identifying your own personal CK. I mentioned that earlier. Identifying it, like if you have any communication killers that you typically come with in the majority of your conversations, and I'm talking about when it gets kind of like where it's uncomfortable. If you could identify that, you have a tool of where you want to go next, and you have to decide what you want. That's the second component to it, deciding what you want in your relationships, like having a vision. I think that's an area of growth where you have a vision for yourself of what you would like your relationships to look like. Like, for example, I would love for my relationships for there to be peace in my relationships. So how would I go about doing that? The first assignment is I have to be at peace. I have to bring it. So the vision that you have for yourself and what you would like is you have to step into that element of being that. You have to walk in that yourself so that you can actually see it come into fruition. Because how we show up in the relationship is actually how it's going to be. That's just the bottom line. If you show up grumpy, It's going to be grumpy. If you show up with an attitude and a chip on your shoulder, that's how it's going to be. It's going to be a chip in the relationship. If you show up demanding, that's how it's going to be. You're going to have someone that's always frustrated at what move to do next with you because you're demanding. If you show up with love, that's what you're going to receive. That's just the natural cause and effect of relationships, y'all. So that is it. I hope that helps with you with the things that we share tonight. I hope you guys got something out of this. If you did get something, put in the chat, got something. I definitely would love to hear your comments on that. And also, this is our last and final fourth C, y'all. So we are done with the 4 C's. But if you would like for John and I to have more conversations, please, please, please put that in the chat and just put more conversations. If you'd like to direct message me or messenger, like with some topics or some things you guys would like to hear about, please do that as well, because it always helps us as we're creating content and trying to have conversations that to inspire and to help people, because this is really all about let us share what we've learned and what we've learned not to do and how it's different for us now because we've taken the time to really invest. That's the word I want to leave you guys with as we've went over all these C's: communication, caring, compromise, communicate, commitment, and communicate. These 4 C's, y'all, it takes investment. So think about that as you're building any relationship in your life, that there has to be an investment, and the investment has to start with you. Any final words, babe?
I just thank you that we can have these conversations, and I do hope that everybody found it useful, and would love to hear more feedback, and hopefully people be able to take some of this stuff and build on their own, and whatever encouragement you get from us, go out and share it with the rest of the world.
That's right, y'all. So that is it. We are out with the 4 C's. Thank y'all for joining us. And as always, make it a good day because you can. Peace, y'all. Thanks for watching. We love y'all. Thanks for all the comments. Bye.